Good evening, and welcome to a peaceful journey, far away from the flickering lights of today's world. Let your body sink a little deeper into comfort. Feel the quiet of the room, the gentle rhythm of your breath, as we prepare to wander together, not into battle or upheaval, but into something far more delicate. Tonight, we will gently step into the forgotten corridors of ancient Rome's soft humming heart. Its bureaucracy. Not the drama of emperors, not the clang of conquest, but the calm and intricate systems that held it all together. Scrolls and wax tablets, couriers and census lists, soft sandals shuffling across tiled floors, a breeze drifting through marble colonnades. As you listen, allow your mind to drift across 2,000 years of history, to a quieter world, where records were kept with reed pens and patience, and order was something built with human hands. We begin now. Let the day go. Let the thoughts slow. Let history whisper you to sleep. The sun rises slowly over the rooftops of Rome. Not the golden grandeur of an imperial parade, just the soft light catching the curve of a tiled dome, the morning haze glowing over quiet basilicas. Pigeons flutter from the eaves. Vendors begin sweeping in silence. And down one quiet alley, behind the Forum, just beyond the Temple of Saturn, a tall arched doorway opens into a lesser-known world. The office of the tabularium, the keeper of Rome's records. Inside, the air is still cool from the night. A scribe yawns quietly as he lights a small oil lamp. The scent of warm olive oil, wax, and parchment mingles in the air. His name is Lucius, just one of many scribes who begin their day long before the sun is high. Lucius will spend his morning copying contracts, filing census rolls, and gently tying scrolls with soft leather thongs. His desk is plain, but the work is steady and important. And it's here, in this peaceful world of ink and order, that our journey begins. Mantelpiece clock. Imagine now the sound of soft sandals brushing across stone, a distant bell tolling from a temple, and the warm hush of a breeze through fig trees. Rome's power didn't just flow from its legions, or from its laws, but from its records. The quiet bureaucracy of the empire stretched like a web, from the marble halls of Rome, to the dusty corners of Hispania, and the sunlit ports of Alexandria. It was not glamorous, but it was astonishing. Thousands of functionaries, not all senators, not even all citizens, but clerks, scribes, cancelari, and notary, each with their task. Some copied grain counts, some filed census data, including every adult male, every child, even livestock and orchards. Others drafted letters for imperial magistrates. Some counted bricks delivered for an aqueduct. And all of them kept the empire moving. They did not shout. They did not march. They simply worked, in a rhythm older than memory. One man carried the postal stamp of the cursus publicus, the imperial mail service. Another sat with a wax tablet and a stylus, tallying local tax contributions. Even in the farthest provinces, a Roman clerk would be found, gently explaining forms to a Greek farmer, while a local translator listened carefully beside them. The work was delicate. The work was orderly. The work was Rome. Mantelpiece clock. You may hear the soft rustle of scrolls being unrolled, a reed pen dipping into ink, and the quiet creak of a wooden stool. Lucius begins his second scroll of the day. He's copying a decree. Nothing grand, just a permission for road repairs, outside the walls of Pompeii. His handwriting is small, neat, deliberate, each letter like a whisper of ink. Outside, a courier arrives, dust on his sandals, carrying a leather pouch. More papers, more requests, more quiet work. In the neighboring room, an older clerk named Secundus is organizing the fasti, the official calendar of Roman public events and duties. He is serene in his task. Secundus enjoys dates. He remembers every consul, every censor. To him, time is not something rushing forward. It is something carefully folded, documented, preserved. And throughout the building, you can hear the subtle rhythm of bureaucracy. The soft scrape of stylus on wax, the gentle murmur of voices reading aloud, the faint tap of sandals pacing slowly between desks. Nothing urgent, nothing rushed. Only quiet, steady work. The empire breathes. Mantelpiece clock. Now, imagine the slow ticking of time, not on a clock, but in the turning of a scroll, and the soft sigh of a curtain moving in a breeze. The hour grows warmer. Sunlight drifts across the tiled floor in long golden bands, but the inside of the tabularium remains still and shaded, as if time itself slows here, gently folding upon itself with each careful document. Lucius rises to stretch. He walks slowly, not hurried, never hurried, past a wall of scrolls nestled in terracotta niches, each one tied with cord, sealed with wax, and labeled with quiet precision. There are ledgers of grain shipments, names of veterans given farmland, records of aqueduct maintenance, and letters. Dozens and dozens of letters between Rome and its provinces. Many are from governors, some asking for building supplies, others politely reporting on local disputes that never quite needed soldiers, just understanding. These letters are answered by imperial secretaries, whose styluses have written more lines of Latin than most poets ever dreamed. One of these secretaries, a woman named Flavia, works beside an open window. She dips her stylus in ink. She listens to birds outside. She breathes in the stillness, then writes her reply in graceful, balanced script. To the governor of Tarraco, in regard to the grain levy for this season, the Senate grants an extension of 1 month, due to reports of flooding. The wind picks up gently. Scrolls flutter on the shelf. A cat stretches beside the window, and the business of Rome continues, not loudly, not harshly, but with quiet assurance. Mantelpiece clock. Imagine now the soft sound of parchment unrolling, a pigeon's coo from outside, and a single wax seal pressed down with a calm, practiced hand. Elsewhere in the tabularium, Secundus is still arranging dates, but he has now turned his attention to something older, and even more delicate. The Fasti Consulares, records of consuls stretching back centuries, a timeline written not in hours or days, but in names and seasons. He hums softly, running a fingertip along a smooth slab of stone, where letters have been chiseled carefully into history. The Romans did not trust chance. They arranged their days around festivals, market days, and rituals. Every legal matter, every contract, every civic ceremony was scheduled precisely. Even the tides of paperwork followed the lunar cycle. Outside, bells ring softly from the forum. Not an alarm, just a quiet signal that mid-morning has arrived. Time flows gently here, not a river, but a tide pool, measured, observed, written down. Secundus unrolls a papyrus from the previous year. He checks a note in the margin, delayed 1 day due to rainfall in the forum. He smiles. Even the rain had its place in Rome's order. Mantelpiece clock. You may now picture the sound of bronze bells echoing across the forum, gentle breeze stirring ivy leaves, and the soft scratch of a stylus correcting a number. As the sun reaches its peak, the tabularium closes its doors. Not forever, just for a little while. Even Rome's scribes need a pause. Lucius and Flavia step into the shade of a small courtyard. The walls are lined with painted scenes. Mythological, yes, but softened by time. Birds painted in flight, vines winding between columns. In the center of the courtyard, a small fountain trickles quietly. Lunch is simple: cheese wrapped in fig leaves, fresh bread, olives, and a small handful of grapes. No one hurries. No one speaks loudly. Even their laughter is soft. Shared stories of misspelled decrees, or the time a new scribe accidentally sealed an empty scroll. And through the high arches, they can see Rome bustling gently outside, a street vendor calling out the price of plums, a group of children playing with hoops, and an old man carefully sweeping dust from the temple steps. It is the middle of the day, and the empire rests just a little. Mantelpiece clock. Close your eyes and listen to the faint splash of water, the rustle of fig leaves, and the soft clink of ceramic cups. The hours after lunch pass quietly. Lucius returns to his desk. He now transcribes a list of public works: repairs to roads in Gaul, a bridge in Sicily, and a grain warehouse near Ostia. Each entry is brief, precise, and patient. Across the room, Flavia works on translating a letter from a provincial official. It's written in a mix of rough Latin and Greek, an old dialect from the mountains. She pauses often, not because she is unsure, but because she respects the text. She wants to preserve the meaning, not just the words. Outside, the city continues. Merchants trade, priests chant, mules clop softly along cobbled roads, But in this room, everything remains unhurried. One page, one seal, one thread of Rome's fabric carefully sewn back into place. Mantelpiece clock picture now the soft scratch of pen against papyrus, the faint bleating of a goat outside, and the muted hum of a city breathing quietly in the distance. As the afternoon sun casts golden light across the rooftops, a courier arrives from the provinces. He enters the tabularium quietly, his sandals dusty, his cloak worn, but his face serene. He carries a wooden case filled with tightly rolled scrolls, each marked with the crest of the cursus publicus, Rome's state-run postal service. The cursus publicus was not swift by modern standards, but it was remarkably efficient. For an empire that stretched across continents, messages could travel hundreds of miles in a week, handed from courier to courier, from post station to post station, with relays of horses, and soft-spoken scribes waiting at each stop. In more remote provinces, carrier pigeons might even be used, flitting gently from watchtower to town. Lucius receives a scroll from the courier. It's marked with a fine ribbon, a tax record from a northern territory. He nods his thanks, offers the man a drink of cool water, and then returns to his desk. There's no hurry to read it. It will wait, like everything else here, for the proper moment, in the proper order. Mantelpiece clock, imagine the faint flutter of pigeon wings, the shuffle of sandals across stone, and a long slow exhale by mid-afternoon. The scroll rooms grow cooler again. Their walls are thick, their floors of marble stay cool even in summer. This is where Flavia now works. The archive. Shelves of scrolls stretch to the ceiling. Thin wooden ladders lean gently against the walls. She climbs slowly with ease. Her fingers brush the faded labels as she searches, until she finds it. A census record from 40 years ago. She carries it down, places it on a stone desk, and carefully checks the population total of a town in Thrace. A new scroll has reported a decline. She must verify. This is how Rome maintained itself, not only through force or glory, but through diligence, by knowing what it had, who lived where, how many sheep grazed a hillside, how many wells a village had. Flavia finds the number. She marks it with a fine ink dot, and she replaces the scroll, exactly where it came from. Mantelpiece clock, hear now the gentle sound of scrolls being lifted, the shuffle of parchment, and the quiet creak of wooden shelving, as shadows lengthen. Lucius finishes his final document of the day. His reed pen moves slower now. The ink is lighter. The sun has dipped behind the western walls of the forum. Around him, the other scribes begin to clean their desks, placing pens back in small clay holders, gathering crumbs from their midday bread, stacking scrolls neatly for the next morning. A calm descends, not because of fatigue, but because the work is done. The last thing Lucius does is extinguish his oil lamp. Not with a rush, but with a quiet puff of air, the flame curling inward like a sigh. He gathers his belongings, nods softly to Secundus, and steps out into the violet-tinged Roman evening. Behind him, the tabularium rests. Scrolls wait silently. Ink dries slowly. The work will begin again, but not tonight. Mantelpiece clock, let the day fade now, with the soft flicker of lamplight, and the closing sigh of a wooden door. Lucius walks home as the sky deepens into a soft mauve hue, and Rome glows with fading light. He doesn't live in a grand villa, nor a cramped tenement, just a modest domus, a small comfortable home near the Subura, where traders and quiet scholars share narrow flowered streets. The air smells of bread, and wood smoke, and the faint sweetness of figs ripening under clay-tiled eaves. He passes a water cellar pouring from a bronze jug, and an old woman sweeping petals from her doorstep. No one speaks loudly. Everyone has done enough for one day. Lucius enters his home. A small oil lamp waits on the table. His sandals come off with a soft tap. A woven mat greets his feet. He pours a little wine, diluted with cool spring water, and stirs a small pot of lentils over the fire. This is the part of the day he likes most, not because it's exciting, but because it is quiet, predictable, safe. He sits, and he breathes. Mantelpiece clock, now imagine the sound of firewood crackling softly, a spoon tapping gently in a clay pot, and footsteps fading into the hush of twilight. After his meal, Lucius picks up a small tablet. A wax writing board with smooth black surface, cooled and ready for letters. He writes to his cousin in Ravenna. They haven't spoken in some time, but he always enjoys the gentle rhythm of letter writing. Today the courier arrived from Gaul. The census rolls seem thorough. I think Flavia found a discrepancy in Thrace, but nothing alarming. There is no urgency, no complaint, only calm details, like ripples on a very still lake. Outside, a neighbor plays a soft reed flute. Somewhere far off, a temple bell sounds. Lucius pauses in his writing to listen. He feels connected to Rome, to history, to the gentle ticking of the empire's pulse. He finishes the letter, smooths the wax, and sets it aside. There is nothing more to say tonight. Mantelpiece clock, you may hear the quiet melody of a distant flute, a bell tolling softly from a hilltop, and the whisper of stylus on wax. Later, Lucius walks through the courtyard to the back of his home. There's a small basin there, set beside fragrant herbs and a shallow clay tub. He pours warm water from a bronze jug. Steam rises slowly. He unpins his tunic and steps in. Romans didn't always go to the great public baths. Sometimes, like tonight, they bathed at home, in silence, with lavender and rosemary crushed in the water. Lucius leans back. The water quiets his muscles. The day slips away scroll by scroll. From above, the moon peeks between tiles. It reflects in the bath. A moth drifts lazily past the flame of a nearby lamp. Lucius exhales, not as a sigh, but as a settling. Mantelpiece clock, let your thoughts drift now. With the sound of gently pouring water, and the stillness of moonlight on stone, the air in Lucius's bedchamber is cool. Walls painted with faded vines stretch upward into shadow, and soft linen hangs from a rope above his sleeping couch, not for grandeur, but to ease the weight of the summer heat. The bed itself is simple, straw-stuffed, layered with wool, covered in a light woven blanket. There is a small shelf at the head of it, just 3 items resting in perfect calm. A lamp still unlit, a worn scroll of quiet philosophy, and a small rounded stone, from the riverbank where he once studied as a boy. Lucius lifts the scroll. He does not unroll it far, only enough to revisit a favorite line. What is ordered brings peace. What is known removes fear. What is quiet remains. He doesn't know the author, some minor philosopher from the provinces, but he treasures the words. Outside, Rome exhales. Windows close softly. Distant footsteps fade. A cart creaks far away, and then all is still. Mantelpiece clock, listen now for the gentle flap of a linen curtain, a nightbird's soft call, and the hush of parchment sliding across skin. Lucius lights the lamp now. It flares with a soft hiss, not sharp, just the whisper of oil warming into light. He places the scroll back on its shelf. His fingers pause for a moment over the stone. It is smooth from years of touch, a kind of ritual. He doesn't pray, not tonight. Instead, he lets his mind settle on the shape of the day. Not what he did, but how it all moved, from sunlight to shadow, from list to ledger, from question to reply. He is not important, but he is a thread, and Rome, in all its quiet might, is a tapestry of such threads. His hand returns to his side. The lamp glows low now. The linen curtain stirs. Mantelpiece clock, you may feel the still air of the evening, the warmth of a small flame, and the soft rustle of sheets folding beneath a tired body. Lucius lies down. His gaze lifts to the dark rafters above, then further, to where the roof opens in a tiny square, a view of stars peeking through. He knows them well, not their myths, but their motions. He once helped a city magistrate time local rituals, by watching when certain stars rose above the horizon. The stars do not rush. They do not argue. They do not forget. He wonders if a scribe in another province is watching these same stars now. Perhaps someone in Carthage, or Bithynia, or a hilltop in Gaul, doing the same quiet work, sleeping the same soft sleep, dreaming the same dreams. He closes his eyes, not from exhaustion, but from fullness. Mantelpiece clock, now let the stars watch over you too, with the distant sound of a night wind, and the silent motion of time, threaded gently through darkness. The stars turn above slowly and silently. Within the walls of Rome, most lights are out, but not all. A pair of sandals scuff quietly along the paving stones. A night watchman makes his round, not hurried, not loud. He carries a short staff, but it has never been used. His job is not to catch thieves. It is simply to notice, to watch the corners of a city so carefully built, that even in sleep, it obeys the rhythm of time. He walks past shuttered market stalls, a cart with its wheel tied to a post, and a dog curled in its master's doorway. Nothing is wrong. Everything is in place. He nods to a fellow watchman on another street. No words are spoken. Mantelpiece clock, you might hear the soft tap of a staff, the breath of wind between clay walls, and the echo of sandals on stone in the deepest part of the night. Not far from the forum, a temple remains softly lit, just a single flame in the back, guarded carefully by an acolyte, in simple robes of cream and gray. Within, the scribes of the temple have completed their copying for the day, but even in rest, the room seems to breathe wisdom. Scrolls are stacked in neat rows. A bowl of clean water rests nearby, beside a bundle of soft brushes. A reed pen, freshly cut, lies next to a sealed jar of ink. And in the corners, bundled offerings, small coins, pressed flowers, notes of thanks written on scraps of wood. No one speaks here, but the silence is not empty. It is filled with reverence. Mantelpiece clock, let the hush of sacred stone surround you. Hear the faint flicker of the flame, the sigh of parchment settling into place, the ancient breath of centuries past back in his home. Lucius stirs once, not from restlessness, but from a deep exhale. The lamp is out. His scroll is safely tucked away. The stone is near his hand. He does not dream of glory, or conquest, or emperors. He dreams of a column being carved, of ink drying in perfect lines, of coins counted without rush, of a ledge beside a fountain, where he once read as a boy. He dreams in order. He dreams in peace. And outside, the city remains still. The night, too, has its duties, and like the scribes, it performs them without complaint. Mantelpiece clock, now breathe with the night. Let your thoughts fall away like sand in an hourglass, and allow the calm to carry you where it may, in the faintest hour before the sun returns. Rome listens. It is not yet awake, but it is no longer asleep. A kitchen hearth stirs in a home near the Suburra, not loud, only the pop of kindling, and the dry scratch of flint, as an ember glows. A baker rises, rubs his eyes, and ties his tunic. His scroll lies folded on the shelf, a list of loaves and names, orders for the day ahead. The bureaucracy does not rest, even in flour. Mantelpiece clock, imagine the soft sound of bread dough being kneaded in near silence, the hollow pat-pat of hands against it, and the muffled whisper of fire growing stronger. Elsewhere, in a marble-clad building close to the forum, a clerk arrives early. He brings no fanfare, only quiet precision. The scrolls are unlocked, the day's parchment is laid out, and the sand jar is tapped once to check dryness. He brushes yesterday's dust from the desk, and re-inks a worn reed. Outside, you might hear the faint sweep of a broom, the slow creak of iron doors, and the first early footsteps of a city pulling itself together. The clerk is not rushed. He begins with the treasury scrolls, each number written with full attention. He will not speak for another hour, and he likes it that way. Mantelpiece clock, breathe gently here. Let your thoughts trail like the early morning smoke, soft and curling and ancient behind the building. Hidden by walls and a trellis of ivy, a small courtyard garden awaits its caretakers. These are not noble gardens, not the grand topiary of senators, but rather the herb plots tended by the scribes, chamomile, rosemary, sage. They are grown not for show, but to mix into ink, to scent parchment boxes, to soothe eyes weary from detail. One of the youngest scribes arrives early. He tends the leaves gently, misting the petals with water from a clay jug, not because he must, because he likes to. Mantelpiece clock, you might hear a light splash of water, a soft coo of morning doves, and the rustle of leaves under the soft breath of Rome's pre-dawn air. The light grows. Not yet sunrise, but just enough to begin writing again. The clerk has completed his first column. He tilts the parchment slightly, watching the ink settle, like river water calming in a shallow basin. At another table, a new shift arrives. Older men with silver at their temples, wrapping their togas around shoulders slowly. Each brings a different scroll, one from the land registries, one from the census, one from temple tithes. Each begins in silence, their quills meeting papyrus in a quiet ritual, older than some of the bricks beneath their feet. Mantelpiece clock, feel the rhythm now, the breath of parchment, the steady heartbeat of an empire written line by line, without urgency, without end. The sun has risen, but not loudly. Its golden warmth spreads softly, across tiled roofs and open courtyards, pouring over colonnades, casting long shadows into orderly spaces. The city is in motion, but never frantic. In the clerical offices of the tabularium, Rome's great archive, mid-morning is a time of delicate transitions. Scrolls are rotated, some retired to deep wooden shelves, others summoned by quiet messengers, with wax tablets bearing polite requests. Each request is answered without drama, simply with knowledge. A ledger from Baiae, a shipping record from Ostia, an inheritance document from a quiet estate in Etruria. All catalogued, all remembered. Mantelpiece clock, imagine the subtle whisper of sandals on stone floors, the hush of parchment being gently unrolled, and the faint creak of a wax-sealed drawer opening outside the city walls. But not too far beyond, a small line of rural citizens approaches the outer record station, where tax receipts are exchanged not in haste, but in rhythm. A farmer carries a modest crate of dried figs and olive jars. Another has a small clay vessel, marked with his family's seal, containing olive oil for tithe. These are not bribes, nor burdens. They are scheduled entries, recorded with the same ink as shipping fleets or Senate decrees. Each is greeted by a middle-aged official, in a clean, sun-warmed tunic, his voice low and practiced. Name, holdings, weight. He does not question the fig's sweetness. He records them. Mantelpiece clock, hear the faint bleat of a distant goat, a cart's wooden wheel creaking slowly, and the soft rustle of a fig leaf brushing against the wind within the quiet heart of the city. Temple clerks make their way toward the archive offices. They do not rush. Their feet move steadily over cobbled roads, each step practiced, robe swaying softly. Their scrolls are bound with blue twine, and their satchels smell faintly of incense and beeswax. These scrolls record temple offerings, not the rituals themselves, but the tithes and gifts, each entered into civic knowledge. For balance, a marble figurine from a widow, 3 amphorae of wine from a merchant, a bronze clasp left anonymously. None of it is judged, only measured, weighed, noted, and thanked with a nod. The records are not spiritual, they are administrative, but no less reverent for it. Mantelpiece clock, you may sense the echo of sandal steps between temple columns, the distant clang of a bronze bell from an altar, and the soft crackle of a wax seal being broken. Prompt. Temple scribes arriving at a Roman civic office with scrolls and satchels. The scrolls are wrapped in blue twine and sealed. One scribe gently hands a record of offerings to a clerk seated behind a marble desk. Style, mid-journey, sacred transactions in early light. Aspect ratio, 16:9 as the shadows shorten, and the sun hangs gently overhead. The scribes feel no urgency, only the slow whisper of routine, guiding them toward the midday pause. Scrolls are quietly tied with thin cords. Quills are tapped clean, on clay inkwells, and laid to rest beside finished ledgers. Outside, in the shade of a long portico, a few clerks have gathered, each holding a small linen pouch, with bread, olives, and cheese inside. They do not talk much, only a few murmurs, a nod. The rhythm of their days has no need for chatter. The bread is broken in silence, shared among old friends, who have worked side by side for many years. A sip of watered wine, a handful of dried dates, perhaps a soft chuckle at a half-remembered joke about a misspelled census name. Mantelpiece clock, the sound is soft here, the breeze rustling linen togas, a pigeon cooing under a roof tile, the quiet crack of a barley loaf split in two in the market beyond the office walls. Things are livelier, but still soft in their own way. Vendors arrange their goods in patterns, rows of figs, piles of lentils, clay pots stacked in geometric perfection. But even here, the hand of the bureaucracy lingers. A quiet official walks the outer stalls, with a wax tablet in hand. He doesn't interfere. He observes. Prices are jotted, weights compared. It is not enforcement. It is memory. The city knows what it sells. It remembers who grows what, who has raised the price of barley, or given a generous weight of dates. In the calm, in the dusty brightness of noon, he writes without hurrying. Mantelpiece clock, you might hear the distant calls of traders softened by the heat, the wooden creak of a cart's wheel, and the whisper of sandals brushing the dry stones of the road. Back in the main clerical chambers, the lull after lunch is palpable. No one rushes to resume. The ink needs time to settle, just as the mind needs time to return to numbers and names. Eventually, a clerk stands, tall and slow-moving, and begins unrolling a scroll, detailing shipments of garum, from the coast to inland towns. Another reopens a stack of census figures, methodically checking line by line, for inconsistencies that may only exist in his imagination. No one is annoyed. This is the shape of their life. Even the wind respects the quiet, threading softly between tall columns, and fluttering a single page, before settling again. Mantelpiece clock, imagine the delicate brushing of quill on papyrus, the faint shuffle of sandaled feet, and the whisper of a breeze moving through a half-opened shutter. In a courtyard reserved for higher officials, there is a rectangular garden, not grand, not elaborate, but quietly symmetrical. Lavender grows along the edge. An old olive tree stands at the center, its trunk wide, its branches still. Here, two magistrates sit, with their ledgers closed, conversing not in haste, but in thought. One traces the outlines of a new aqueduct route, with a stylus on clay. The other listens, eyes half-lidded in the sun. They are not debating. They are arranging understanding, as Romans do, like engineers with time. A small boy, perhaps an assistant in training, brings them watered wine, and then returns to his quiet spot in the shade, watching lizards dart between stones. Mantelpiece clock, you might hear the dry rustle of lavender in the wind, the tiny click of stylus on clay, and the soft sip of a cup returned to the tray. The afternoon light softens. No gongs ring, no horns sound, yet all within the Roman offices feel it, a subtle shift, as if the sun has gently cleared its throat. Scrolls are no longer opened, but slowly tied and stacked. Inkpots are corked. Hands are wiped clean with care, as though every task, even cleansing, is part of a sacred order. One senior clerk walks the colonnade, and stops at each room, not to hurry, but to nod. A signal. The day has been fulfilled. A junior scribe smooths the edge of his papyrus. One last time. His fingers linger on the feathered brush of his stylus. He whispers a name to himself. A merchant from the docks, whose shipment he tracked with quiet diligence. Mantelpiece clock, the sounds here are hushes, scrolls being rolled, cloth brushing stone benches, and the distant rustle of olive leaves outside the window. The day's last steps are quiet. Scribes exit into the evening, not as individuals rushing home, but as part of the city's soft exhale. The streets are not empty, but they are gentle. Vendors lower awnings. A pair of children skip stones in the gutter. A donkey carries empty sacks, back toward the granary, its pace slow and sleepy. A scribe passes a public fountain, pausing to wash his hands in its cool stream. Another lingers by the steps of the temple, where pigeons coo under the eaves. They do not rush. Rome is not a place of haste. It is a place of rhythm, and the bureaucrats walk within it, like notes inside a lullaby. Mantelpiece clock, you might imagine the splash of a distant fountain, the soft jingle of a mule's harness, and sandals brushing ancient stone in a quiet Roman neighborhood. The light fades completely. Inside a modest domus, a scribe lights a small oil lamp, and sets down his leather satchel. The air smells of warm clay and rosemary. He eats little, a bit of boiled barley, a few almonds, and a cup of herbal wine. He does not speak. He does not need to. The walls remember his words from the day, carried in the fibers of parchment and ink. A small brazier glows red. In the corner of the room, he watches the flicker, as his eyelids grow heavy. He lies on a straw mattress, wrapped in a woolen blanket. His thoughts are not of empires, or taxes, or laws. They are of the breeze in the courtyard, the hush of ledgers closed, and the way the olive tree stood perfectly still at noon. Mantelpiece clock now, only the night speaks. In the hush of the coals, the creak of old beams, and the piece of ink dried in the dark, and so, as the ancient city settles under stars, and the fires of the forum burn low, the scribes and officials, who held it all in order, surrender to stillness. Rome is vast, but it breathes in silence too. In ledgers and scrolls, in careful record-keeping, in the scratch of quills, and the sweep of togas, there is a lullaby. It is not sung, it is lived. So let yourself drift, with the peaceful rhythm of ancient paper and well-worn stone. Sleep, in the calm and orderly world of ancient Rome's bureaucracy